The court held that the DNA test conducted on the child of the woman and first defendant, Enebong Isonguyo, who was pregnant when her husband was killed, shows that the pastor was 99.9% the father. Hence, the conspiracy to kill the woman's husband in order to cover her infidelity. The court said the defendant, Pastor Prince Udoka, confessed to have connived with the second defendant to kill her husband, Victor Isonguyo, stating that it was the first defendant that led the police to the scene of the crime where the deceased was burned to death. The court also held that the evidence of the son of the deceased implicated the accused persons in the death of the deceased. According to the court, the evidence of the second defendant and wife of the deceased and that of the first defendant, the pastor, of whom she was having an affair, also implicated them in the murder of the deceased.
When a wife or husband suddenly becomes unfaithful, many people are always quick to blame poverty, hardship, or lack of financial stability as the reason for such actions. But what can be said of a situation involving two wealthy, differently married individuals, people who are successful in their chosen careers, respected in the society and financially comfortable? This is a tragic story that ended the life of Engineer Victor Isonguyo, a 45-year-old deputy manager at the Nigerian Petroleum Development Company in Benin City, in a horrific and devastating manner that shocked not only his family, but also everyone who knew him. Stay with me as we carefully uncover the different layers of this disturbing case and expose the hidden truth behind what really happened to the Isonguyo family, a truth that ultimately led to the tragic and untimely end of their father and husband. Mr. Victor lived in a quiet residential area of Benin City with his wife, Mrs. Enebong Isonguyo, and their three sons, aged 17, 16, and 15 respectively. To his family and those who knew him, he was a devoted husband and a deeply caring father, a man who spared no effort in ensuring that his household had everything. For Mr. Victor, his family always came first. Their comfort, safety, and well-being were his top priorities, and every other commitment came second. This sense of responsibility pushed him to work tirelessly day after day to provide food, shelter, and other essentials needed by his family. But working in the petroleum sector was far from easy, considering the sensitive and demanding nature of Mr. Victor's position in the company. As a deputy manager, his role required him to attend countless meetings, oversee company's plans and performance targets, maintain strong professional relationships with sister agencies and related parastatals, and frequently travel across states and even outside the country to engage foreign partners and stakeholders. The pressure of these responsibilities often kept Mr. Victor away from home for long periods. Late-night meetings, interstate assignments, and extended business trips sometimes took days or even weeks before he could return to his family, leaving behind a home that slowly began to feel the weight of his absence. After their marriage in 1995, Mr. Victor Isonguyo had a testimony to share just 1 year later, something to thank God for. His wife, Mrs. Isonguyo, had given birth to their first son, and Victor's joy knew no bounds. The following year, the couple hoped for a daughter to complement the son they already had, but when the D-Day came, it was another healthy baby boy. Determined to break the chain of only male children, Mr. Isonguyo decided to try one more time. So in 1998, Mrs. Isonguyo became pregnant again, and just like others, the third pregnancy also produced a baby boy. Seeing the outcome of his failed attempt to have a daughter, Mr. Victor accepted his fate and believed it was God's plan. He turned his focus to raising their three sons, pouring his energy into their upbringing, education, and well-being. However, over time, Mr. Isonguyo's wife's desire for a female child began to grow. She quietly wished for a girl, someone to keep her company in her later years. But Mr. Victor Isonguyo, contented with his three sons, had no interest in trying again. His priority remained training and guiding their boys, rather than bringing another life into the world. This difference in desire created a silent tension in their family. Mrs. Isonguyo, desperate to have a daughter, began exploring all possible avenues. She reportedly turned to a senior pastor in their church for spiritual guidance, prayers, fasting, and counseling, all in the hope that God would answer her prayer. At first, Mr. Victor welcomed this. He saw his wife becoming more committed to her faith and attending more church activities as good news. To him, it was a thing of joy to see her grow spiritually, and he was ready to support this growth the best he can, knowing that his wife was being guided by a trusted man of God, a senior pastor of the Land of Evidence Church in Benin City. The same church Mr. and Mrs. Isonguyo attended made him to be more comfortable and had no cause to worry. But what started as a spiritual counseling and guidance soon took a dark turn. Pastor Udoka Okachukwu, noticing Mrs. Isonguyo's desperation and vulnerability, decided to take advantage of the situation. He immediately shifted counseling sessions to all hours and gradually began visiting her home under the pretense of performing spiritual cleansings. And slowly, the man who had once been a trusted spiritual guide now became someone Mrs. Isonguyo relied on personally, far beyond the boundaries of faith. The presence of this pastor in her life, initially seen as spiritual support, soon set in motion a chain of events that would ultimately shatter the Isonguyo's family and lead to an unimaginable tragedy. Things took a devastating turn when Mrs. Isonguyo, whose secret affair with Pastor Udoka had resulted in a pregnancy, decided to pin it on her husband. She broke the news to Mr. Victor Isonguyo, but unlike the joy and excitement that had followed previous announcements, this one was met with shock, disbelief, and tension. Mr. Victor, who is reported to have intentionally decided not to have any more children and is believed to have even taken medical precautions to that effect, immediately grew suspicious. According to close family sources, the age of the photos did not match any of Victor's known intimate encounters with his wife, raising serious questions about the child's paternity. Despite this, Mrs. Isonguyo stood her ground, insisting the child was her husband's own and denying any involvement with another man. As days passed, the situation became more serious. Concerned and determined to act responsibly, Mr. Victor informed his wife's family and his own family about the issue. To preserve peace, the both families advised him to wait until after the delivery, suggesting that the DNA test would then establish the child's true paternity. This decision, however, did not sit well with Mrs. Isonguyo. Fully aware of her guilt, she began plotting a way to cover her tracks. She reportedly contacted Pastor Udoka, her lover and the father of the unborn child, and informed him of the family's final decision. Upon hearing that a DNA test would soon reveal the truth, Pastor Udoka realized his reputation and freedom was at stake. With the pregnancy already past the stage where it could be terminated, Pastor Udoka decided to do something more sinister: eliminate Mr. Victor. But how will he carry out such a plan without drawing attention? Mrs. Isonguyo provided the answer. Investigation later revealed that having agreed by Mrs. Isonguyo and Pastor Udoka that Victor's life must be taken to protect their secret affair, Mrs. Isonguyo wrote out a plan on how the heinous crime will be executed. She is alleged to have instructed Pastor Udoka to wait for her husband along Sapele Road in Benin City, the route that he regularly took to work, and when he sees him, he should ask for a ride and proceed with the execution. The plan, seemingly perfect, created by the Delilah-styled wife and the homebreaker, was immediately adopted and set in motion. And on that fateful Friday, 13 December 2013, the unsuspecting Mr. Victor saw Pastor Udoka standing by the road, appearing stranded and waving for help. Trusting him, Victor stopped and offered a ride, unaware that he was now traveling with the very man that was ever ready to do anything to terminate his life. Minutes into the journey, Pastor Udoka struck. He drew a knife and stabbed Mr. Victor multiple times in the neck. The car swerved as Udoka took control of the steering, driving both the wounded man and the vehicle to a secluded spot along the same Sapele Road. There, he poured fuel over Mr. Victor and the car and set them ablaze, believing he had erased all evidence linking him and Mrs. Isonguyo to the crime. What appeared as a simple ride had become a journey into horror, a betrayal that would shock the entire city and leave the family shattered forever. Few days after the brutal murder, Mrs. Isonguyo went to Victor's office to report him as missing, trying to appear innocent. But her later actions would soon give investigators their first clues that Mr. Victor Isonguyo's death had not been random. It had been carefully planned with someone close to him playing a role in the scheme. After filing the missing persons report, she went straight to the bank and withdrew 4 million naira from his account. She's also reported to have transferred some of her late husband's properties and valuable assets to the pastor. This action just days after his death signaled what investigators believe was a case of both emotional and financial betrayal. At Victor's workplace, the sudden disappearance of such a high-ranking NPDC staff immediately drew attention. Staff at its office, as well as detectives familiar with Victor's work and character, quickly reported the incident to the police, who began investigations immediately. The first breakthrough in the investigation came when Mr. Victor Isonguyo's brand new Volkswagen Passat Saloon car, given to him for official duties after his promotion to the rank of deputy manager, was traced to Pastor Udoka's premises. The car's number plate had been changed, and other documents had also been changed to Pastor Udoka's name. When asked how Mr. Isonguyo's car ended up in his compound, Pastor Udoka claimed it was a seed of faith sown by one of his daughters in the Lord to the church, the same daughter in the Lord that he was having an extramarital affair with, Mrs. Isonguyo. But the police, still searching for more clues, quickly noticed wounds on his hands and face, suggesting burns, and began to suspect that something more sinister was at play. Trying to piece together the puzzle, the officers asked Pastor Udoka about the injuries. His explanations were inconsistent and confused, failing to match the evidence before them. Not convinced by his story, the police arrested and took him in for questioning, marking the first major step towards uncovering the chilling truth behind Mr. Victor Isonguyo's murder. As the investigation deepened, more darker truth began to surface. Pastor Udoka eventually confessed to murdering engineer Victor Isonguyo When asked why he perpetrated such a disastrous act against the very person that trusted and believed so much in him, he responded that his action was carried out in a bid to cover up his illicit affair with Mrs. Isonguyo, which has already resulted in the 4-month-old pregnancy Mrs. Isonguyo was carrying at the time. The investigators pressed further with more questions, this time asking if Mrs. Isonguyo was aware of his plans to kill her husband. He admitted by saying, "Yes, we planned it together." Mrs. Isonguyo, however, told a very different story when interrogated. While she admitted to having an intimate relationship with Pastor Udoka, she denied any knowledge of his plans to kill her husband. Not convinced with her statement, investigators asked why she gave her husband's new car and other assets to Pastor Udoka just days after her purported husband's disappearance. Mrs. Isonguyo, in her defense, claimed that it was a spiritual offering, a seed sown to God to ensure her husband's safe return. Despite her explanations, the evidence against her kept increasing. Every document, every witness, and every detail seems to point to her involvement. While she tried to portray herself as innocent, investigators continued to piece together a clear and damning picture of her role in the tragic murder. After the conclusion of police findings and investigations, Mrs. Isonguyo and Pastor Udoka were charged to court. And 6 years later, a high court in Benin on May 9, 2019 sentenced Mrs. Enebong Isonguyo and Pastor Udoka Ukachukwu to death by hanging. The court concluded that the killing had been carefully planned to cover up the pregnancy scandal. Not satisfied with the judgment and still in control of her late husband's financial resources, she appealed the ruling. Then on March 26, 2020, the Court of Appeal, after reviewing the case and examining the evidence, wasted no time in upholding the High Court's judgment. With only one option now left, Mrs. Isonguyo turned to the Supreme Court. And in a dramatic twist and turn of events, Justice Mary Odili, while delivering her judgment on the 8th of April 2022, acquitted Mrs. Isonguyo of all charges, stating that the circumstantial evidence used by the lower court was not strong enough to prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. Pastor Udoka Ukachukwu, on the other hand, who had also been sentenced alongside Mrs. Isonguyo in 2019, was reported to have escaped from prison during the 2020 NSAS protests and is yet to be recaptured. The shocking twist of this case reminds us that reality can be more surprising than we expect. A murder meticulously planned, a wife who reported her husband as missing despite allegedly knowing his fate, and a pastor who vanished from custody. All points to the dark complexities of human nature. Justice may take years to arrive, but this story leaves one chilling truth: no secret can stay buried forever. What do you think about this case? The wife, Pastor Udoka, and the escape from prison? Let us know it in the comment section.